Can we actually salvage this relationship with the European Union? Do we need to be kinder to them? The reason I'm asking this is because I've been very taken aback by some of the rhetoric the likes of Steve Baker have been using recently about almost apologising, really, for the way that we were talking about the European Union during the referendum, appearing to hint that the only way we can get things sorted when it comes to things like the Northern Ireland Protocol, what's going on in the Channel, wider issues as well, is if we start sucking up to them a little bit, and I don't really like that. Let's talk now to Joel Reland, who is from the think tank, UK in a Changing Europe. Thank you very much, Joel. Great to have you on the show. Can we salvage a relationship with the European Union? Do they want to salvage it?
Yeah, I think there's potentially quite a lot of grounds to improve relationships in the next few months. I mean, it's telling that this meeting today, Macron in particular, made quite a few compromises to get the UK around the table. There were talks taking place over the summer about kind of British concerns that it might turn into an EU talking shop, that it would be secretariat driven by the European Commission. And Liz Truss sought reassurances, which is what has led her to be in Prague today, that this wasn't going to be, EU enlargement by proxy. And so efforts have been made on the EU side to build that relationship. And like you say, also on the UK side, the tone has changed. It's become more friendly, more constructive. It looks like we've got two people that maybe were at rock bottom, but they're trying to pick themselves up off the floor a little bit.
Can I just say, when Theresa May was in charge trying to negotiate a Brexit deal, she was, and anyone would have to agree on this, very, very, very kind towards the European Union, to the point where they decided not to shake the friendly hand, but basically try and take the mickey, really. And then, obviously, we've had things like with the vaccines. Well, thanks to a lot of British innovation and British funding, we actually created a vaccine. That French one didn't turn out too well. In fact, the French one turned out so badly that they tried to get some of ours on the way into Britain. We've had issues there where the French president has called our former Prime Minister a knucklehead when, yet again, the continent was under a military threat. We stepped up. The Germans sent some probably rainbow-coloured helmets. We actually sent arms. I appreciate things have changed, but for a while, as far as I could tell, it was EU policy to allow Ukraine to become Russian and then just deal with the humanitarian crisis. What's been going on in the Channel is we've been lobbing the French a load of money and they've done naff all for it. I'm sorry, but they've got to be nicer to us, not the other way around.
I think this conversation that they're having in Prague is a recognition from the EU that their system isn't kind of quite fit for purpose in the modern context of the challenge of Russia. I think the way the EU worked, you had insiders and outsiders, and that for them left quite a big risk. Countries that are sort of on the perimeter of Europe, countries like Moldova, Ukraine, obviously, there was a risk that they could be drawn more and more into the Russian sphere of influence. So I think there's a recognition that you need to have more platforms for talking with those European allies who aren't already inside the tent, inside the EU. And so I think to an extent that is facing up to the limitations of the system in the modern security context. And also there was a recognition the UK needs to be there. There's no point having this new platform if the largest European country that's not in the EU is not coming to the table. So I think, there is a recognition of the changing context there.
And if this is a success, and if Ukraine does manage to send the Russians packing, for example, if we do manage to come to some kind of compromise with the Channel and get the migrant crisis stopped, potentially, dare I say, even working together to tackle these migrant gangs, then I suppose it might prove to the European Union that you can leave the EU and be a success and still get on with them, which they wouldn't want, presumably.
Well, I think for Truss, this is definitely a reason why she'll want to be at these meetings, because, if we cast our minds back to the referendum, a big argument from the Brexit campaign was, we like Europe, we just don't like the European Union. And so this would be a really clear example of how you can operate on big international geopolitical questions without being a European Union member. So, it would lend some credence to that argument. I think that's why we're seeing Truss there. Would it be an issue for the EU? I think to an extent not really, because the biggest member that's likely to leave has left now, the UK, and I think there's kind of enough other reasons why the EU wouldn't expect a country like Italy, or France or Poland to walk out. So I don't think they'll be too concerned.